This podcast is rated E for explicit and by category of true crime contains language and descriptions of crimes not suitable for young or sensitive listeners. Typically, when the crew researches a case, there is a certain level of understanding with local law enforcement. We aren't investigating cases to step on toes or to interfere. We certainly wouldn't want to jeopardize a case with the information we share. We attempt to vet that information with law enforcement. Sure, some jurisdictions are more friendly than others. In some cases, agencies will share all the information they have. After all, we're trying to help solve a case that would otherwise be relegated to history. Others, not so much. But for the most part, we like to have relationships so we can at least share the information we find with them. After multiple attempts to form a relationship with Vigo County Sheriff's Office, we have yet to get a call returned. Keep in mind, we record as we learn information, so this was recorded before contact has been made. Be sure to stick around until the end for updated information. This is part 2 of Marcie Fuller Swinford, Vigo County, and this is the Cold Case Chronicles.
I know your secret. I know the truth. I know your secrets and I'm telling on you.
Marcie Fuller Swinford, and who we think possibly could have been the reason that she was murdered. Well, there could be several reasons she was murdered, but who we think is responsible. One, of course, obviously, the ex-husband. We talked a little bit about him.
You always look at them first.
Yes, always look at them first. If you have a child with this person, you would hope that, but you would hope in a perfect world that you wouldn't want the mother of your child to die. But it's also important to know that he took his son and raised him with another woman and didn't tell him that she wasn't his mother. So how do you do that?
He?
Right.
And then,
so you take a child who is like 2 years old and you allow another woman to raise him without ever saying, hey, by the way, she's not your real mom. Your mom was murdered. Which I know at 2 years old, you're not going to tell a child that this happened, but you would think on up into the teen years.
I mean, even by like 6, like you can probably start to understand some of that concept.
Well, they should be able to have a relationship with their siblings and that side of the family, those type things. So that was kind of a little bit of a red flag, I think. And maybe part of it is just protection, trying to protect you from pain. I can kind of see that a little bit.
I don't know. As a mom, I can't imagine like my kids not like as much as they like despise each other. Sometimes I can't imagine them not knowing
each other. Then he also has been arrested several times for resisting law enforcement, battery, OWI. That kind of tells you the kind of character he is.
Again, not every wife beater is a murderer.
Right.
Not everybody who makes other bad choices. Actually, most people don't murder.
Right. But we do know that he was abusive to her. He was very aggressive with her. He was using the kids against her, those type of things. There was another guy in the picture who, and yes, I said picture.
For those of you that are new here, it's picture.
It's picture. There was another guy in the picture that was, we'll call him the handyman. He just kind of like hung around the house, hung around her mom's house, did little odd jobs.
Are we in Hill House? Like,
kind of. Yeah. So he was like the plumber would and I've had people like that. You have someone that can do an odd job and then you call them back to do other jobs. But then he started hanging around a little too much. And he actually fathered a child of one of Marcie's sisters. And she knew he was bad news. So she took her child and left the state, didn't even tell him, this is your child or anything, because she knew he was bad news. Marcie knew about it and wasn't telling him, didn't want anything to do with this. And he had a crush on Marcie. Well, the problem is Marcie didn't really return those feelings. So there's the theory that possibly he wanted more from Marcie than she wanted to give. And also he wanted Marcie to tell her where her sister was, and Marcie wouldn't. So there's a little bit of back and forth about what he might have done. At first I thought, well, that's not a reason to really murder someone.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I'm just trying to imagine, like, people are like pushed into assault, like, or like some people are victimized as assault because of not reciprocating feelings, or even rape, but generally aren't murdered.
Well, he also was with the sisters whenever the car was found. So her sisters went out looking for her car that night, and they had driven around looking for the car and didn't see the car at all. And then he went with them to look for the car. And then all of a sudden he took them right to the car.
Because my thought is, unless like we don't know of a reason why
remorse,
why he would want to kill her. So, because I feel like whoever killed her, if it was someone she knew, it was premeditated. Like, because she was at the store driving, so it's not like she was at her house hanging out with someone and then things went south. It's like someone sought her out and killed
her. And that's my thought too. Is like, how did he know that she was going to the store that day?
It was like hanging out at the house.
Well, that's true too, but someone had to know where she was going or be there at that time. What concerned one of the sisters was when he went and saw the car, they told him, don't go near it because there might be evidence at the car. Mm-hmm. And he went and got in the car and put his hands on the steering wheel and was messing around in the car.
What an idiot.
And she said several times, no, don't get in the car. And he continued to get in the car and mess around with things.
Well, I was already in there, so I was already just now with a witness.
Now my fingerprints will be on everything. But then again, some guys are just stupid. So maybe it was just a thing where...
Yeah, and maybe at the time they didn't know she was dead or anything. So he was like, no, she's hiding. I know she is. Like, he was probably mad because he's like... So maybe he was just like, no, this is BS. Like, she ran off. I'm going to prove it. I'm going to find something.
Right.
Because that's the only other thing I can think of is like, besides hiding his own evidence by putting evidence in there.
Right.
Maybe he just truly didn't believe she was missing and that she was running away or something and was like mad and like, I'm just going to find a clue.
My thing was, why would he hurt Marcie? One of the family members said that their thought was maybe he knew by hurting Marcie or killing Marcie that would lure her sister back into town because her sister lived out of state, and he had been trying to get her back into town with his daughter, and if something happened to Marcie, he knew that she would come back. That is a huge
stretch
thing to do. You know, I mean, there's other things you could do other than murder someone.
I mean, and we talked about it last episode where it was definitely homicide.
Right.
And her body was very like decomposed. So that's probably I'm just imagining an aggressive murder.
Yes. And
which is probably rage, right?
Yeah. It seems like rage. And then the thing about him is he lived just like a block over from where her car was found. And he's been arrested for theft, fraud, perjury, false informing. So he's kind of got a little bit of character flaws in him as well. There's this story that's been told through the years, and I haven't been able to verify because, of course, it's been so long ago. Whenever you're looking at over 30 years, there's a story where a few of the family members believe that both the ex-husband and this handyman together did the murder. And I said,
how would they ever know each other?
Exactly. How would they know each other and how would they pre-plan this? Apparently, it has been told through the years that they were together at a card game at a residence that was right by where her car was located. It's a possibility that she had stopped to see one of them I don't know which one she would have stopped to see, but on her way home from the grocery store, maybe she stopped to go in and see one of them. We didn't have cell phones back then, so it's not like she said, hey, I'm outside. Maybe she stopped to see one and something went wrong, and then she ended up dying. However, one of the things I can't wrap my head around with that is she didn't have her shoes on. Her shoes were still in the car. So the only
thing...
Were they
neatly placed, or were they just
they were neatly placed.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking about wearing jelly shoes and the blisters. Like, even when you wear them a while, you still have blisters. Your feet still get, like, sweaty. It was summertime. That was hot.
Yeah.
If I take my shoes off in the car, I'm just throwing them on the passenger floor. I'm not neatly placing them.
Well, here's kind of what I've played through in my head, that maybe she went to the store. We know that she was there to return pants. Possibly she pulled off into this parking lot, in this parking spot, to change into those new pants. If that were the case, she would have put her shoes neatly in place so that she could change into the pants, but then something went wrong. Did someone walk up on her while she was changing clothes, or did she meet one of these guys out in the parking lot and possibly something went wrong there because someone took her from that area? She didn't leave on her own free will because she already had the groceries. So she wouldn't have left her car. She wouldn't have left her purse and her keys and all her stuff in the car. So she didn't leave there by herself on her own free will. So either they took her from that point, or just a complete random stranger took her from that point.
Which it's not
far-fetched, not in Terre Haute. And I know you called it Terrible Haute last week. And honestly, the more I looked into murders in the 80s in Terre Haute, it's unfucking believable.
Oh, it's amazing. My parents let me go to school out there.
I can't believe how many just random murders and how many random murderers there were in Terre Haute in the 80s. I actually got just a random person contacted me and said, I think my dad killed Marcie.
Call the police, please.
Well, here's the thing. She's been trying to call the police for 2 years.
Jesus.
And I know. And this is why nothing gets done in Vigo County, honestly, because I have been trying to get in touch with the police for 2 weeks now. They don't return calls, or you can't get through to them. And she said, I called and they said, I'm sorry, we don't know who Marcie Swinford is. We don't have a case. And she said, it's a cold case. She said it happened in 1985. They told her they didn't have a 1985 cold case.
When you go to the news.
Right. And that's what I told her. I said, if they don't end up calling me back, we called again today. And if they don't end up calling us back, then that's exactly what we'll do. If people call the police and they don't return calls when you say, I think my dad killed this person. So what happened is she has had a reoccurring dream in her life where she was in the back seat and her dad picked someone up and he killed her. And then when she was 9, her dad took her out to the site where Marcie died and told her that he was a psychic and he knew that Marcie died there. And it was just odd. And he's a really bad man. Like, he's got a really bad record. And so it's possible. And I've asked Marcie's family if they know this person, and they don't know him. They don't have any connections to him. So it would be a random, it'd just be a random thing. And I asked her if there's any kind of place of employment or any kind of hangout that they have that she can recall from whenever she was younger that he would stay. And she said the only place is there would be a grocery store or like a corner store that he would take her to buy candy cigarettes whenever they would hang out together. So I'm thinking maybe
there's a really old gas station right on 41 that's like 2 blocks from where her car was found.
And maybe they were there that day, and
Maybe he followed her at the grocery store
who knows?
or whatever store she was
And
at.
nobody, that's the thing, no one knows. And all they would have to do, she even said, if my DNA would help, if they do have DNA and they could take my DNA and match it and do a familial match. And
That's
so
weird.
she's offering that up, and they wouldn't even take her call. Who knows how many other people have tried to call and report something, and no one is taking the phone call. And it's bullshit. It's absolutely
I'm
bullshit.
like gonna flip this table, and it's fucking heavy.
Please
so.
don't. You know what?
Ronnie will
I don't
murder
think that
you.
you will.
Well,
Our next episode
My
will be
cyborg-
how Alicia got killed.
Yes.
my cyborg back would break. But
Right. Another person, of course, is Larry Hall that everybody wants to throw out. But that is
he killed no one.
he killed no one. I don't believe he killed anyone. Show me your proof. You can't, because I don't think it happened.
Like even the lowest serial killer, like the lowest IQ of a serial killer is still like 30 above Larry Hall's.
Yeah.
And it's not a ding against like having no IQ or intelligence. It means that all of the unsolved crimes that he would have, quote, gotten away with.
there's no way. I just don't believe it. And if he did, I will sit here and I will eat these words, every single one of them, and swallow them whole. But I don't think it happened. Another person who is an entire piece of shit, but needs to be talked about, was another individual who was killing people in October of 1986. His name's been thrown around a lot, where people say, well, I thought he did it. And everybody has their opinions, or at least everyone thinks, well, I thought this case was solved because I thought this person did it, or I thought that person did it. And one of these people is Bill Benefiel. Bill was a monster, an absolute monster, a psychopath. There was a 17-year-old girl that was walking home, and she was just 2 blocks from her house, and she was running an errand for her mom, and Bill Benefiel was wearing a mask, had a gun. He forced her into a garage. He stripped her. He covered her head. He bound her with her own clothes and an electrical wire. And according to court documents, he put her in a van and he took her to a house where he took photos of her and he raped her. He chained her neck up and handcuffed her to the bed, and he glued her eyes closed. I know. It's awful. This is insanity. And then when she tried to escape, he would cut her back and cut her fingernails and part of her hair, and said that he was going to put it in a scrapbook of other victims, which makes me wonder if Marcie had any of that happen to her. Like, did she have any hair cut off?
They didn't find her for a long time. And
Yeah.
it was summer. So
But you would be able to tell if her fingernails or her hair.
exactly.
was
I'm just saying,
cut.
like, her rate of decomposition may have increased in that summer. And if it had rained, and she's in a ditch.
Right. But you would still, with hair and nails, you would be able to
Exactly.
tell. Those are things. Yes. This girl, the 17-year-old, he cut her neck and her chest, and he raped her with his gun and sodomized her.
Oh my God.
Now, this girl lived. So this poor child lived, and she was held for 4 months, raped daily. And he would pry her eyes open with the glue and then glue them back shut. And she was allowed.
What year was this?
This was in 1986.
Did he just do that to make her scream?
Yeah, just because he's a monster. And then she was given 1 potato and a glass of water a day. After 2 months, he took her to another house where he was holding another lady, and the other person was 19 years old. He made the 17-year-old watch as he beat this other girl. He actually dug a grave for both of them, and then he made the 17-year-old watch as he put super glue in the 19-year-old's nose
No.
and taped her mouth, and that's how she died.
No.
By
Where
the
did you
super
read
glue.
this?
It's all in court documents. And so then he took her and buried her in his backyard. When the police came to look for the 17-year-old, he hid her in the crawl space of his house, but they had a search warrant and they
it's
ended up
Vigo
finding her.
County. Oh, so they did.
No,
Okay,
they
thank
did.
God.
They actually found her. He thank God, was executed by lethal injection in 2005. This is what gets me about this case. First of all, there were so many people outside protesting his lethal injection, saying that he shouldn't be put to death.
I'm like literally against the death penalty, but that guy, like, literally, I just threw up in my mouth 3 times.
Right.
Like, bye.
I'm not against the death penalty. And I feel like if you're there and you're saying he shouldn't die because they were saying because he's mentally ill, a sane person wouldn't do this shit.
No, of course you're mentally ill, but you are not mentally ill enough to not be punished for.
Right.
How many other women are missing, like, that are missing around this area are his victim?
Right. And if
how many times did he move?
One of
Check
these
all his previous
people
addresses.
that is saying he shouldn't die for this and it's because of his mental illness, how would you feel if it was your daughter that he raped repeatedly for 4 months with a gun and sodomized and glued their eyes shut? Like, would you feel the same way? I mean, I would want to kill him with my bare hands.
Not even my child, and I'm for, like, in this specific instance, do it.
And this girl has to live the rest of her life.
But she identified him. She got out. Like,
yeah, she's a rock star.
Right. She's our fucking hero.
Yes.
Because, like, there's no way that that's not what he did to her. And so, no, he
deserves to die. And I hope that she was able to be there to watch him take his last breath.
I would.
And the best part is the only person that was there for him during his last supper was his attorney. Nobody else.
How does the fucking attorney? Oh, because they have to be there.
Yeah, they have to. Yeah, he's dead. So there is the possibility that he might have had something to do with it. I would think that if he did, it would be shown in the crime scene photos and you would be able to tell because he's the type of person that would have kept a trophy.
Yep.
And you would kind of be able to tell if he kept some sort of trophy. However,
how far was he from where her car was found and her body was found?
Well, I don't know, but he was in Terre Haute, but he also seems like the type of person that would have taken her back to his house to keep her because he was, a keeper of girls.
And, like, not anything against a 17-year-old girl, but whatever. She's a woman at 17 and what she lived through. She was a woman then.
Yes.
But a mom is going to have a different fight. Right.
So I don't think it should be ruled out.
See, here's why I'm against the death penalty. I want to torture him and get...
Oh, for sure. I would love to glue his eyes closed.
We just know that, like, if you are doing that kind of crime, that's not the first one you've done. You've graduated to that and you have more victims.
Right.
He definitely has 2.
At least.
So...
Well, at the point where he said that he was cutting her hair and cutting her nails and cutting her back and putting in a scrapbook of his other victims, he hadn't killed the other lady yet. So who was he speaking of as his other victims? If that was
definitely someone.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing that, it's probably not your first.
Right. That's what I believe also.
So
no, it couldn't have been.
Maybe not even your second. So somebody's not doing their job.
Right.
I can't believe I'm surprised they put him to death without getting more information out. I guess maybe it was in a time period.
And he probably wasn't going to tell anything else at that point.
He seems so like he wanted to talk about it though. So you would think they could be like, we won't kill you.
I think all that information probably came from the 17-year-old. I don't know that he talked about it.
All of her testimony.
Yeah. She's amazing.
Oh my God.
There was a similar case, and I kind of touched on it last week. In July of 1980, Gloria Hayden, she was 29. She was married with 2 kids, and her car was found in a lot between 7th and 8th Street along Cherry Street. 2 days later, her body was found across from the penitentiary on the west bank of the Wabash River, and her hands and feet were bound with cable ties, and her body was weighted down with a railroad iron. How
do you pick that up by yourself? There are some in there's literally an old railroad track in my backyard, and there are 2 of those irons. My ex and I couldn't pick one up.
Yeah, it may have been more than a one-person deal. Who knows?
Or like you're so enraged that you're just like,
because it's still unsolved as well. Still a cold case. But according to the Terre Haute News, a source at the Postal Service where Gloria worked said that it was believed by her peers that her husband was involved in her murder. And they also said that there was no investigation done to their knowledge concerning interviews to confirm the stories about her whereabouts at the post office, or if she was having issues with anybody at the Postal Service, or if they knew anything about her relationships. So they obviously didn't do their job very well back then, according to Terre Haute News. So we're going to give them another week to call back.
Let's just go. Let's go.
Let's just go
Right now.
Let's go.
Not right now, but
I told this girl that if we don't hear from them, we'll just go sit on the steps of, I mean,
of what? The Vigo County Courthouse?
yes.
No thanks. You know, the wind blows to the west.
Right.
Like, that's where all the smell comes from.
oh boy.
Yeah. I don't know what else to do for that. If you are anyone who has any pull with police in Vigo County or even Terre Haute, contact us so that we can somehow get in to the Vigo County Sheriff's Office, because for some reason there is a giant wall between everyone and Vigo County.
We will like disguise your face. We don't have to disclose
disguise your face. We'll disguise your face.
your voice, your
Yes.
face. We won't tell your name, but we don't have to disclose any of that. If you just want to say, I think this is corrupt shit,
Yeah.
let us know.
Yeah.
Or if you killed her, let us know.
Yes. If you murdered Marcie, please let us know. You can
It
disguise
doesn't
your
matter.
face.
We won't even be able to tell the police because they won't listen.
Right.
So.
They're not going to
You might as well tell us.
You might as well tell
You'll
us.
just-
It's not funny, but Jesus, it hurts.
I know.
So I have to laugh.
It's awful. It's awful. But you know what? If you did it some way, somehow, I will get that information out. I promise you that.
We have been told that Vigo County detectives are familiar with the caller who thinks her dad could be guilty. She has been disregarded as someone who's had multiple interactions with the police and has made multiple similar statements about different cases. In their defense, it is entirely plausible that that lead goes nowhere, but it should not be summarily ignored. That said, I expect a call back from Vigo County, and I remain optimistic that we can share resources, develop a relationship, and move forward with Marcie's case. Please follow along on social media, Cold Case Chronicles on Facebook and Instagram, and if you have any information that can help, please send an email to coldcasechronicles@gmail.com. And as always,
Have the day you deserve.
Especially if you're a murderer.
I know your secrets and I'm telling all